All right, good afternoon. We're going to be picking up on Allie.Chat. The last time that we met, we created the commands module, so we're going to be working with that today and then pushing that out to NuGet. So the first thing we want to do is log in here, and we're going to log in with Google, and give me just a second while I log in here. All right, and we'll go ahead and enter this information, and then that information. And here we are logged into our production app. So inside of Allie.Chat, one of the things that you can do is you can have it set up to be your authorization server for your own web APIs or your own apps. So we're going to create a new client application here. I believe this account has a maximum number of 6. I'm not sure what it is for the default user. So for my client application type, we currently have 4 types of OAuth that we support. We have implicit flow, authorization code, resource owner password, and then native PKCE flow. So let's start with authorization code. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to name this client here. This is going to be called my commands client 1. And we'll name it the same thing. It doesn't need a URL because I'm using authorization code from a console app. So I should be using PKCE, but I'm going to be testing each one of these individually. We don't need to require consent, but we might as well add it for now. Enable local login, we can allow that as well, even though we're not going to be using that. This is authorization code, so I need to enter client secret, so we'll just enter the name of secret. We need to input our scopes here, so it's OpenID, profile, and then Allie.Chat.web API, which should be spelled like this. And we need to check them. So this interface could use some work, and we may need to go in here and fix this. My allowed CORS origins should be just localhost, so we should be fine there. And my post logout redirect URIs, I don't care about that at the moment. Okay, so this client application has now been saved. And if I come back here to my client applications, you can see that the allowed scopes are here. And it doesn't say it's authorization type, so that is slightly concerning that this is not working the way I'm intending. But now what we're going to do is we're going to jump into our public app here, and I'm going to create a new project, and this is going to be a console application that we're going to be testing in .NET Core. And I'll throw this here into the, we're going to say this is test apps. Come on here, come on. Oh, come on. What's going on? You can't make a folder on my SSD? Whatever. I don't understand what that's about, so we'll just close it and reopen it again. Everything is opening the wrong app. We're going to just kill everything and reopen it. This one here. Okay, so in here we're going to add a new solution folder, and I'm going to call this test apps. And I'm going to add a new project, and it's going to be a console app for .NET Core. We're going to dump it in test apps, and this thing is going to be called Allie.Chat.TCP.test apps. Allie.Chat.testapps.tcp, and we'll create that. And now everything that I've been making is in 2.1, so we're going to go ahead and change our framework here to be in framework 2.1. Okay. So in here, what we're going to do is we're going to be working with our different commands modules. I have 2 different ones, one for TCP, one for Websocket, and one for that includes auth, and the other does not. So since we are using our client applications and we want to have the auth package that is created here on NuGet, we're going to use this Allie.Chat.commands.tcp.auth. Okay? And so if I was to look at this, because it's not yet on NuGet, it looks like that I have one interface here called a iCommand service, which is inherited by these different types, and the one I want is auth code. So in my program, I'm going to create a new private static one of these commands auth code. Okay? And now what I'm going to do is when I start my app, I'm going to create a new one like that. And when I pass this in here, I need to have a new parameters TCP auth code in here. Okay. When I look at this for my core parameters, TCP interfaces, here it is, parameters. This is bot access token, web API token, stream pulling interval, reconnect interval, and for auth, it should be almost exactly the same except for the access token. And then on the Websocket, under interfaces, it's the same. So I can move these to a core here. So we'll move this WebSocket's core like that. And then also this one here. Well, let's do one at a time. We'll start with these. So I can get rid of these param commands, WebSocket, and TCP. And then I can bring in my parameters here. And so this is going to be called, now it's going to be called parameters commands. And this is in commands.core.models. And then our interface is going to be in parameters commands. And that'll be here in core. Okay, that looks good. We'll import this interface here. And we're good to go. Okay, so my next set, this should remove this one and this one. And then also my WebSocket parameters. This should be gone too. Okay, let's rebuild the project. So here in parameters commands, we're going to change the namespace here. And if I look at my base command service, this is a no parameters commands. So when I look at this again inside of commands, base command service, this, I want this to be an parameters commands called parameters. And we want to pass in here my parameters dot and your pulling interval on this is well, hold on. When you look at how you were doing this before, because I think it's like 100. This is being invoked here, which is passing in the stream cache interval milliseconds. So we want this to be parameters dot stream cache pulling interval milliseconds. And then my web API token comes from parameters here. Okay. And we also want to have a protected read-only called iParameters commands here called parameters. Okay, that looks great. So now, where I'm doing this, I'm going to pass in here my parameters, and then this new auth. And I don't need this new instantiation of it. Looks good. And that looks good. The next one that I want to do is on TCP, which is going to have the same thing. Param commands. We don't need it here. This is going to be parameters. Now the difference that I just saw is in WebSocket, my API this needs to be a web API client AC of my parameters.web API token. Okay, that looks right. So now we're going to look at our commands TCP here. That looks right. And we'll rebuild it. And here, my base commands auth service, which is inside commands core auth, says that my base here is wrong. And we want to change this to be a iParameters commands called parameters. Okay. And then here you're changing the type to AC auth, and the one below is just AC. So that looks right. So here, this is now going to be called a commands TCP auth. So we haven't worked with this one yet, right? Because for this one, it needs to have the Okay, hold on. We have too many interfaces here. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to try to rebuild it, and then we're going to go clean up our other ones. So here, we're going to go ahead and comment this out for now since we're not using it. And this one is a new web API client AC auth. So this one, we're going to do this as a empty. So as a parameters call this iParameters commands. And then this one we're going to call a web API client AC auth called web API client. Okay, we don't need that anymore, and that one. And we'll rebuild it. Hey there, ManCow90. How are you doing? Thank you for that follow. Appreciate that, buddy. If you have any questions when I'm working on, don't hesitate to put them into the chat. Okay. In here it says my constructor doesn't take 0. So this is fine. This is for TCP auth. This is called iParameters commands. And then we also want to have an iWeb API client auth AC called client web API client AC. Just web API client. And we'll put this here, and then our parameters here. And then I don't need to have this new instantiation of it here. Cloaked says, long time. How are you doing? Hey, Cloaked. It's good to see you. It has been a long time. I don't know what that other expression means. How are you doing today? And so now this one, we can do a new web API client AC auth. Which looks fine. And this needs to be a iParameters commands auth. So let's go ahead and make that change. And so here in auth, we want to have our interfaces and our models. And this is iParameters commands auth. And this is going to be an Allie.Chat core auth interfaces. And in this, we don't need to have our web API token. Like that. Now in our base, this is a iWeb API client. So that's why we're making it as a new one. And this needs to be an iParameters commands auth. So this is slightly off because iParameters commands includes that additional property. So how we're going to do this is then in core, we're going to have a new interface called like this, iParameters commands token, which will have this. And then we'll inherit from it. And this will be called token. And then in here, we won't have that one. So in our models, we'll have the same thing, parameters commands token. And we want this to be a struct. Like that. And same thing with this one. And we want these to also be structs. Looks good. So that means that in here we can get rid of these two and have this be a just testing your Danish. I don't know it, unfortunately. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you. You as well. Happy New Year. I hope you're having a great holiday. This is the second time this has crashed on me today. This is getting annoying. All right. So in here, when I look at this, this is going to be called iParameters commands token. And then in here, we want to have the new one called parameters and pass in this one. Like that. Okay, on the next one, this one is my commands TCP. It says I need my web API client AC auth. Web API AC client auth. It's a web API client AC auth. And we're going to call this web API client. And now since we're in my commands TCP auth, if I look here, this one should be the same as iParameters commands, so I should be able to get rid of this. And this is going to be iParameters commands. Okay. And then back over here, base command service, this needs to be an iParameters commands token. So we're going to back this off again to be like this, and then I'll leave this error here for a minute. And this is going to be called iParameters commands and we also want to have on here the web API AC client auth called web API client. Now for this one, my parameters are different. Because it's this commands AC auth, we want to have a protected read-only new. And it's called iParameters commands. Now if I look at my WebSocket auth and this one auth, you can see I have this auth code 1, which is the same, this PKCE one, which is the same, and this RO password one, which is the same. So I'm going to bring these up into my core auth. And then we can delete them from both of these. So in here, this is going to be Allie.Chat commands core auth interfaces. Okay. And then this is Allie.Chat.commands.core.auth.models. And this is I parameters TCP done. All right. And then also this one. And then this one. So that looks better. But this is actually just I parameters auth code. And this will be I parameters auth pkce and I parameters auth ro password. Same thing here. Okay. So that should be done. And now back here, we're going to change this to just be called I parameters. And this to be called I parameters token. Okay, that's going to make our own fair share of errors to correct now. So the first one is here. We can get rid of that namespace. Let me go ahead and leave my errors up. This is called I parameters auth code. Like that. And then we're assigning the new type. Next one is here. This is also, it looks like you're in the wrong namespace here. Base commands Websocket auth. Should be an Allie.Chat commands Websocket auth. Writer has Shift F6. What's Shift F6? Tell me about that. And this is parameters auth. What did you call it? You just have this as an I parameters. Now it says that in here you want this to be a I parameters. Hey there, psychosocial 87. How are you doing? Welcome to the channel. Quick refactor so you don't get those errors. Oh, that does sound nice, to be honest. Okay, this is a base commands auth service, which is an I parameters. So we don't need this new. Like that. Okay. And then on this one, this is also WebSocket auth. So here we want this to be an I parameters auth pkce. Like that. And then we want to say parameters equals parameters. API client AC auth. Okay. Parameters. API client AC auth. Okay. And that looks right. Okay, so the next one is here. This looks like an easy one to get rid of, and then we just have a couple more. So when I'm on my base command service, we want this thing to be a iParameters. And I want to add on core here a new one called base command service token. Like that. And we can get rid of everything but the constructor. And on this, we want to say iParameters and iWebAPI client AC. So you could say that this is a parameters and a web API client. But this is iParameters token. And you're going to have a protected new iParameters token called parameters, which we're going to set here like that. Sometimes the sound cuts out, else I'm loving it. The sound cuts out? Does anybody else have that same problem? If you do, I can look into it. Cloaked, I'm glad you're enjoying it. If you like, you can also check out all the YouTube videos that I put up, youtube.pixelhorsevideos.com. Okay. And now here on my base command service, we want this to be a parameters token. And so we want to move that here. We want to move my update web API token to here. And then also my is token valid. Just a second, because otherwise your token comes from like these login results and whatever. So if I look back here, that's fine. And then down here, is token valid? I'll just move this to my new function here. Now, in commands WebSocket, this one is telling me that my parameters are bad because it wants me to pass in my parameters and then an I web API client AC auth called client. Web API client. Like that. Now commands WebSocket. This is a base commands service token. We're going to change this to be called a token service. So this needs to be an iParameters token. like that. Like that. Okay, let's do the same thing on commands TCP, which is going to be an iParameters token called, it's a token service. I don't see anybody using this. Yeah, that's right. Okay. And then we want to do a iParameters, I'm sorry, it's an I Web API client AC called Web API client. And then here, in my commands Websocket auth code, we're going to look at my base commands Websocket auth. And we have in here a base commands auth service. So that looks okay. And so now this is a iParameters commands auth code or something like that. Just iParameters auth code. This is a base commands WebSocket. So that looks okay. And then we want to have here the iWeb API client AC called Web API client. Auth. Okay, so on my base command service is where I have this update web API token is on my, where did it go? Base. Hold on. That's right. That's right. Okay, update web API token. That's on my core interface for iParameters token. No, it's on my interface for iCommands token service. But in our case, we're on auth. So I don't need to do this. So if your login result does not equal to null and your string is not null and your is token valid asynchronous, which is an await, And now it wants me to return my base commands WebSocket auth. So here we're going to have a protected virtual void bool task of a bool, which is going to be called is token valid asynchronous, and we want this to be abstract. And here we want to return true. We just want this to be a return false and a return true. So this we can actually do as a shortened expression like that. And just change this to be a bool. Okay. Like that. Okay, this one is just going to be an override of bool. And then here you want to do a just that. Okay. It says my base command service doesn't have something in here called this one says that my is token valid needs to be here. And here we can say that we're going to have a protected string called web API token. That's fine. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild it. Okay, a few more errors. This one says that my commands RO password is a is it auth? It's auth, so it's I parameters. So this WebSocket auth needs to be a base commands auth service, which has my connect, disconnect, and update in it. And so this is called I parameters auth RO password. And then here we want to have the I web API client AC auth called web API client. Like that. And this one is going to be called is token valid. Okay, so one of the things that you were doing before is when you were doing your check on is token valid, you were not retrieving your new token. So we need to implement that. And this one is an I parameters auth RO password. And it's an I web API AC client auth or something like that. That one, which is called web API client. And then is token valid. This is going to be return false, and this one will be return true. And then this one is I parameters auth PKCE. And this is going to be called your web API client, and we want to do this as a I web API AC client auth. So I guess it's web API client AC auth called web API client. And this is valid asynchronous. It's just is valid. And then this is going to be a false. And this will be a return true. Okay, same thing here. This is going to be a return false, and this will be a return true. Okay, we look good to go now. So where we're calling is valid token. I don't see other places where that's being used. Hold on. Yeah, so here. No, everything's compiling. I have a logic error in here. So up here, when this is created, you're not checking to see if that token is valid. So you're only checking that. I'm a logic error. So we're going to change this to be called a validate token, which will be a task. So if this is like this, then you want to do a await get, and this needs to be an asynchronous task of a bool. And you want to do a get access token asynchronous. Looks good. The next one is here. Is token valid asynchronous, which is a asynchronous task. So if this is the case, and like this way, and here we want to return a await get access token asynchronous. And it's called validate token. Okay, it's called validate token, pardon me. And it's going to be an asynchronous task. And if your access expiration time is less than or equal to now, then you want to do an await get access token asynchronous. Same thing here. And this is an asynchronous task. And here we want to say if my expire time is less than now, then you want to do an await get access token asynchronous. 2 more. So if my expiration time is less than or equal to now, then what I want to do is await get my access token. And this is the last one. So if my expiration token is less than or equal to my now, we want to do a await get access token asynchronous. And this needs to be an asynchronous task. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild it. Okay, everything worked. So now when I rebuild this, and I look at my program here, we're going to uncomment this. 5 times the same code. What do you mean, remote? How are you doing? Welcome back. And on here, this is going to be a parameters auth code. And we have a bot access token, a client ID, a client iSecret, which I set to secret. These scopes, which are OpenID, profile, and Allie.Chat.web API. My stream cache polling interval will be 45 seconds, and my reconnect will be 15 seconds. And now this one wants a Web API client auth AC, which is a new Web API client auth AC. And that needs to pass in nothing. And if I look at this and I did a commands and I looked at my event here for just my honest event, my everything event, on command event, we're going to go ahead and do a JSON convert.deserialize object of my args dot, just the whole thing, and we'll do a console.write line when we get that in. And then we'll return a task.completed. This is serialize object. Okay, so back over here on Web API, our app is called, seems like something doesn't work there. Commands client 1, and our bot access token here, this is for our TCP client. So it's this. And we'll give it a burn. Okay, looks like we need to do a while true, and then we want to do a console.readline. Now, over here, this told me unauthorized client. So I've got something wrong here when I'm registering clients through the site. So that'll be the next thing that we fix. But for now, we can use my test client. So we're going to change this to be A in just a moment while I pull this up. Oh, what? Okay, good. So over here, my test client that I'm creating or have created is it's called auth code. And that should be fine. So let's try it again. And this time when it launches, it authed OK. And you can see it joined the chat. So over here in Allie.Chat, if I was to look at this, I wonder if this is still connected. It looks like it is. And I did a test. You can see the messages output. And we can see in my Discord when it loads. You can see test. And now if I ran my commands time test, you can see the command fired. It returned hello world, and I was expecting this to catch over here, but it didn't. So something's going on here with it pulling from the web API. So if I look here at my commands auth code, it is getting the correct one. And so then when I'm polling on this, and I get my on message event, there it is. And my cache data is empty. So my cache data is not working. So let's try it again. Now in our case, web API token here is null in my base command service. So when I look at my core for base command service, your token should go here. And then your update token should go here. So here in your is token valid, we're going to have this as an abstract. Which is going to break my token service because we want to have in here a protected override is token valid. And we'll just do that. Okay. So this says is token valid. Doesn't look like I have it here or in That one's okay. Okay, we'll get rid of that completely. So now when I rebuild it, here in your update event for base commands service, you need to get your new token here if it's valid. Just a second. And this one should have your validate token, right? Which is overriding in here. Validate token asynchronous. So we're going to change this to because I don't need both of these. So I'm going to pull this one over here for a second. And I'm going to look at this one again. So realistically, if you're in commands, then is token valid should always be your, if your string dot is empty or write space of my web API token. We'll just do it like that. And then like that. Okay, let's go ahead and rebuild it. So in this base commands TCP auth, this needs to be a base commands auth service. Which needs to have in it the update web API token. So let's go ahead and make this another one here. Call it a command service. Like this. And this time what we're going to do is when I look back at my service here, this one needs to have a function called public virtual void update web API token. There it is. So this needs to be a interesting. So your web API token kind of needs to exist on the base class. Like that. So on this one, base commands token service, you're going to do a web API client equals a new web API client AC of your token, of your parameters.token. And then here you're going to say if your web API client does not equal to null, then you want to do a web API client.dispose. And then you'll set this new one here. Like that. So in here, this definitely seems like you can move this to the base class here. And finally over here on my constructor, this is for commands WebSocket, which is having the token provided. You don't pass this in. Same thing here. And now when you look at your base commands token service, you're passing it in here. And with this one, we're not going to even assign it yet. Because this is where we do it, is when we assign that web API client. Okay, we'll rebuild. What up, John? It's been some time, brother. How are you doing? I don't have any music bot running at the moment. Sorry about that. How are you doing, dude? It's been too long. Web API AC auth. Base commands auth service. And so here we want to have a public override update web API token, and then here we're going to do my web API client equals a new web API client AC auth. And up here you can just assign it, and then here you can do a web API.update web API token. Set access token to your web API token. And on this one, you can get rid of this. And there it is. And then when you're getting your access token, update events. It doesn't look like I'm ever doing the update web API token here to be my login result.access token, right? And I want to do the same thing here. And here. And then again here. Here. And here. Okay, this one, we'll get rid of this, and then like that. Same thing with this one. Same thing with this one. John says, yeah, I'm doing great. I know, dude, I'm an old man. I'm old. Place is chatty. It's just like my channel. Yeah, you know, we'll get mostly programmers in here, brother. Everyone's working for the most part. But chatty, you got to start somewhere. So now we can get rid of this and try it again. This one we can get rid of here. And one more run. Few more here. If I look at my base, Web API client AC auth. That looks fine. This one looks fine. Yeah, you are by background noise. I hope it's interesting background noise. This one. And we'll build it. Okay, it worked. Let's give it a try this time. Okay, we connected. Bot retrieved. We're going to try to get all my stuff here. That looked like that worked. And now if I jump back over into our app, did it finally disconnect me over here? Oh no, it was loading. It was just taking a second. It's insightful. Come on, kick through. It seems like my web API is shutting down when it shouldn't be. Okay, so that worked. And now, if I look, you can see no command was fired. And if I look at my Allie.Chat here, under commands, I have one command registered, which is for time. It currently has no replies that are set to it, or none that are being shown. None that are being shown. So if I was to issue time, if I look, I don't think it's in my channel at the moment. It's not. So let me add this to liver dev trying. Oh, he's not a bot in here. That's fine then. Okay, so then instead of being in here, we'll do it here, and we'll do a time. And you can see that we fired our event. And so it works successfully through TCP. If I was to look at this, though, in Tree Viewer, it looks like that from the chat, my route here is coming back as null. So before we debug that, let's try again here for WebSocket. So if I made a new app here, a new test app called console app for .NET Core called Allie.Chat.testapps.websocket, and I put it here in test apps. What I can do here is do a add reference to my commands WebSocket auth. And then we want to change this to be a 2.1. And then if I take my exact same instantiation here, except change it to be a WebSocket auth code, and then we need to add my plus equals to on command event. And then get rid of this one, and then get rid of this one. And then we want to change this to be a different token, which is here. And I change this to be 2.1, and we'll make this my startup project. And when it loads, we need to do a while true. We want to do a console.readline. Okay, it authed in. Waiting to see if it connects to WebSocket. It might be that WebSockets aren't running at the moment. It might be that it is running at the moment. So let's go ahead and issue a check. It did fire. It never connected to the WebSocket server though, which is concerning. Let's try it again. We did get an access token. My client says the state is open. We don't have this in here. And then we don't have this library. And if I was to try it again, still didn't kick. Almost though. So it's like WebSocket didn't register. That would be the parameters which are being passed. So if I was to look at the base class on this, so it is connecting. My cache data is there. It looks like it worked. Yeah. There it is. So it worked okay. Our route is still coming in as null. So let's fix that. So if I look at the app, for when this comes in here in the Web API hub, we have a get message in here. Called send message or something like that. Oh, I'm in the wrong hub. Sorry. It's in Connect app called Connect. Here we have something in here called on message event. And we're simply deserializing it and then passing it to my service layer, which is under BLL routing. And it seems like your route should have already been set at this point. So what we're going to do is in my Git, I'm going to make sure I'm on my development and we'll launch it. Okay. There's a lot of services. Let them all start up here. And so when we are running this and we log in, there it is. Give it just a second to load. And when I look here at my test, and I issue an outbound here, when I look at my deserialized message, my route source is populated, but my route is null. Okay. Cool, that worked. So now if I was to go back to here and run this again, do a time. Okay, here it is. My cache data should have it. It should fire this message. And if I look at my message, route server has something, route source has something, but here it didn't serialize it. Okay, so route source is null. It's route source. So in the web app, when we're sending a message here from the chat component. Route source, you're setting to X. So I could do my chat hub. If I stop here on this again, and let's try it again. Just for fun, we'll try this TCP server, which is probably almost for sure not going to work. Nope. Oh. It says connected, but it doesn't seem to be working. That's fine. So let's go now to the app and run it. And now when I look here at my stream and I send something out, when I look at my deserialized message, my route source is nothing. So back over here, let's look at this. It says that it's a route type and it's a route type value. So when I look at this, it's JSON. My route source exists, but doesn't have the other two fields. It just has bot, stream, and paths. That's all that was sent. So if I look at this, where we are populating the routes, here, I want to do a console.log of my routes. And we'll do a time. When I look at this time, I want to look at my console. I don't want to reveal anything sensitive, so just a second here. And it's right, it doesn't have it. So what that means is when you're doing your request routes outbound for stream, this needs to have on it a route type called route type and a string called route type value and a GUID for ID. Please reveal all the sensitive stuff. No, wait, don't do it. Yeah, that's how you get banned. Okay, and so now when I try it out and I go to the site, hey Skyward Dev, how are you doing? We're working on Allie.Chat. It's pretty much completed. I'm just doing little things here at the end. How are you doing today? Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. Yeah. Try that there. I think that that's a little better. Maybe I can blow this back up now. Try that, see if we still get that delay. I think we're done with the delay. There we go. Now it's better. Now I wonder if I still get flicker with it. Yeah, looks cool. Okay, so let's go ahead and rerun this. Let me go ahead and fix this one more time here. Allie.Chat is up and running, so you can actually go and play with it if you like. There we go. Okay, so everything's started. We'll do a login. One more try. Sometimes my SQL Server hiccups because I'm using my FreeNAS for my development environment. And yeah. There we go. That's a lot of command prompts. Yeah, there are. In the app itself, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 individual services, 2 a web app, a web API, an identity server, and a connect web app. Okay, so now when I come over here and I test it, now route source is still not being set. So in my web hub, I forgot to set it here. Route type equals route type, and your route type value equals route type value, and your ID equals route ID. Okay, give it a second here. Okay, and then when I take a look, route source has outbound route and the ID associated with it. So now it'll work correctly. So that was an easy fix. Okay. Let's see. So one thing I wanted to check was over here on our test app that we were building. We wanted to test out the time command. So when I have this command type and I do a switch on my args.command text, and I get my case here, which is time. Then what I want to do is I want to have this object here that I can send outgoing messages to. Interesting. This one is misspelled. And on your base command service, we want to have a send message. So let's say I was on this one, okay, and I was looking at my server here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a new base command service method called public virtual void send message, and we're just going to do string message as a abstract void. And we'll do this as a task, and it'll be an asynchronous task. So now when I'm in my controlling app, I can do a commands authcode.send message asynchronous to my date time dot local time to local time, and then we should have one which is like short date string, and then we can do a plus. So we'll add this into my brackets here. And then I want to say that my time is datetime.now.toLocalTime.to short time string. Okay, and now we'll give it a try. Okay, it says I need to implement these. So on my base commands TCP, here I can have a public override task of send message asynchronous. And all I want to do here is a TCP client dot send asynchronous to my message. What keyboard am I using? It's called a Bloody keyboard, Bloody Light Strike keyboard. It uses UV lights instead of springs. Okay, and we can have the same thing in this one. Public override send message asynchronous, which needs to be a asynchronous task. This one needs to have it as well as a public override send message asynchronous, which needs to be asynchronous here, and then we want to do a ws client.send asynchronous my message. And then the last one goes here as well. Right there. Okay, we're going to go ahead and rebuild it. Thank you, Fallen Hope. I appreciate that. And we can give it a run now. Okay, this time I'll give it another time. Did this disconnect? Yeah. Yeah, I can look up the exact model if you want it. And there it is. There's the message. And you can see we also got our output for our time. So it's working now. So that's our commands module. And let's see, I've got a few more things I need to do here. The logout isn't working. We need to fix that. My SSL server isn't working. We need to add it in so that when you do the exclamation point currency, that it will show that. Why does it keep blipping? This is a brand new camera. Why? But thank you for staying with me for now. I'm going to take a short break. I'll be back in 12 minutes. If you have any questions, make sure you pop them into the chat. Also, we got a Discord, discord.pixelhorrorstudios.com. I try to put all these videos up at youtube.pixelhorrorstudios.com. That sure didn't help, did it? I'll see you guys in just like 15 minutes. Enjoy the music, and I'll see you in just a little bit. What do you mean super silent? Sounds good, also super silent. Wait, why is that still all funny? There we go. Does that sound better? All right, I'll see you guys in just a little bit. Thanks for staying with me.